And the last activity for today, at least in the session in the morning, is an invited talk. I think Alex Young is there, and the chairwoman of the session also, who is Eve Cremades. So Eve, Alex, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, thanks, Beatriz. And thank
Turn
you.
your cameras on, please, if you can.
Yeah, mine is on. Maybe it takes a while to show up.
Perfect, Eve. How are you? Nice
Yeah,
to
hi.
see you. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
Al-
to the LOC and SOC for organizing this.
yes, a lot of people beyond the scene. And Alex, are you there? Oh yeah, yeah.
Here.
The son of Alex and the son. Well, your time, the invited talk, please, Eve.
Yeah. So it's an enormous pleasure to present Alex Young. He's the Associate Director for Science in the Heliophysics Science Division at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in the US. Among his many tasks, he coordinates the educational and public outreach team for the division. And he's passionate about sharing knowledge. So in this passion, he will tell us about how to engage the public through solar eclipses, 2017 and beyond, and NASA perspective. I don't see your screen, Alex, yet.
Oh, here, let me share my screen. Just 1 second to pull up my presentation. So there we go. Is it showing up now?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alex.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you again for inviting me, and let me get things going. So I'm excited to be here. As many of us are disappointed that we're actually not there in person because we were looking forward to interacting with everyone as well as enjoying the eclipse. So we have to do this virtually, but thank you for setting all of this up. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we have been engaging the public and society through eclipses. In particular, we'll focus on the 2017 eclipse, total eclipse in the United States, and then talk about some of the other eclipses in the Americas and what we have coming up in the future. And this is, again, the perspective from NASA and how NASA has engaged both the nation and supported the work that's happened around the world. So just for a quick reminder, the 2017 eclipse was an exciting opportunity in the United States. This was the first total solar eclipse visible in the continental United States in 38 years. And the one that was visible in the 70s was actually only in a small little sliver of the northwestern United States. And this was the first coast-to-coast eclipse since 1918, so almost 100 years. And this event started in the morning off the coast of Oregon in the northwestern United States, traveled across 14 states, ending off the coast of South Carolina in the southeastern United States. And when NASA came on board to support the community, we focused on 5 areas: education, public engagement, safety, citizen science, and science. Now, I will not focus on the citizen science and the science aspect. We've had some great presentations about citizen science. We'll hear more about eclipses from experts such as Jay Pasikoff. So I will focus on the education, the public engagement, and the safety. But I will say that really quickly, there are certainly a lot of really amazing and rich opportunities in citizen science and science, not just to look at the sun and the corona and the chromosphere, but also to see the impact on the Earth. We have fantastic opportunities in both citizen science and science with ionospheric observations, as well as neutral atmosphere, looking at also the impact on plants and animals. And so it's an amazing experience that provides lots of different opportunities. And a lot of this came out in 2017. And certainly for the United States, this was the first time that we're in the internet age. And we have incredible availability for the public, as well as the rich set of NASA resources. So we developed a website, eclipse2017.nasa.gov, to carry all of this information, to connect with all our partners, to share what everyone else was doing across the country and in fact around the world. And we also had an older site, Eclipse GSSC, which has been part of the Eclipse community for a long time. And so we wanted to make sure that all that information was also available. Key to this was partnerships, and this is just a small piece of the partnerships that we had with various institutions across the country. We also had relationships with groups around the world. And then there were the 10 NASA field centers, as well as many federal agencies. So this was a huge opportunity and really required all of these groups to truly achieve this. This was not something done by any one organization. For education, we had a lot of opportunities to talk about what eclipses are, talk about celestial mechanics, why we can't see eclipses all the time, and also the ideas of why eclipses are rare, not only because of the orbital dynamics of the Earth and the Moon and the Sun, but also the fact that eclipses occur all over the world, but you have to be in the right place at the right time. And a lot of times they appear in places that are not so accessible, including, remote locations, as well as, of course, across the 70% of the water across the globe. This was an opportunity to utilize new cutting edge computer technology to do visualizations based on real data, and allowing us to show lots of different perspectives for a phenomena which can often be challenging for the public to understand, and sometimes even for astronomers to understand, because people are so often limited by their personal experience, and being able to step away and see things from the moon's perspective, from the sun's perspective. And also we were even able to show some of the perspective and some of the scale, which are difficult. Of course, the solar system is huge, so even showing the moon Earth scale is a difficult thing to do. And this is one of the opportunities we had. Safety was a critical part. We wanted to make sure that everyone was able to observe the eclipse safely. We worked very hard to make sure that glasses were available, not just through NASA, but through libraries and partnerships with groups like Google. But of course, recognizing that this was an eclipse that was visible across a large portion of North and South America. And so not many people from that large area were able to see the total eclipse. And of course, being in the partial phase meant that you couldn't look at the sun or the eclipse directly without the appropriate safe viewing glasses, or learning about the different indirect methods which you could do, projection methods. And this was a huge challenge because it was such a large event. We then faced the issue of bogus glasses, glasses that were not up to standard, that were not safe, as well as glasses that maybe were safe but didn't actually follow the standards that were set, the international standards, the ISO compliance. We worked very closely with the American Astronomical Society, who were really the stewards of eclipse safety, and they worked with various medical organizations and experts to make sure that we had the most up-to-date information, and that we could continue constantly to share the message of safety. This was a critical part. And in addition, safety was not just about the viewing safety in terms of looking at the eclipse, but also the safety of getting to large events. Basically, we had people all over going to events outside to see this. Certainly in the northern hemisphere, this was during the prime season for summer. It was very hot, and people were traveling from long distances, and so the safety for the events themselves was a critical part which we shared. In terms of public engagement, one of the key things that we wanted to try to share was, first of all, to recognize that not everyone could be in the path of totality, and it was still important to be able to be engaged. And so we wanted to have as many opportunities for people to see the eclipse, even the partial phase in person, but also share in totality through virtual means, through live feeds from across the country. But in addition, for those that could be in the path of totality, to really try our best to express how big of a deal this was. This is a cartoon XKCD that gives lots of great physics cartoons. And this was an attempt to show that seeing a total solar eclipse versus, let's say, being in 99% coverage is truly night and day, that there is no comparison. And, 99% is not almost 100%. It's a completely different thing. It's like a phase transition. So this was a challenge, and this will continue to be an ongoing challenge to make this clear. We actually found a lot of people that got to 99% and thought that was good enough. And unfortunately, that meant that they didn't take that little extra step, and they missed out on what the entire experience of a total solar eclipse. This included producing a lot of products. We produced products and kits, folders for educators, so that we could send something to one educator, which would then allow them to reach tens to hundreds to even thousands of students. We provided Eclipse safety brochures. They're not shown here, but many of these were also produced in Spanish, and this is something that NASA is continuing to expand on, to have more and more Spanish language products, which is going to be even more important for the 2023 and 2024. We also had flyers to talk about all the different aspects, as well as the other types of science, not just the eclipse science, but the related science, things like exoplanets and transits, and of course, very popular, the maps. This was sort of an all hands-on event. NASA brought all the assets they could bring, not just solar viewing spacecraft, and including spacecraft from our partners at places like JAXA and ESA, as well as other agencies like NOAA. But this also included Earth observing instruments, which allowed us to look at the impact on the atmosphere, the ionosphere, as well as observing the shadow, even bringing in International Space Station, high altitude balloons, which were part of many citizen science programs, as well as high altitude planes. The key part for the day of the event included broadcasts, which started off the coast of Oregon with a plane viewing from a plane over the ocean. And then we went from site to site as the shadow moved across the country, and then ended off the coast of South Carolina with observations from the ISS. And so this was a huge undertaking to coordinate all of these different locations, which had live feeds, which were able to share the excitement and impact of the various audiences, as well as bringing in science experts and educators across the country. And so just this was a logistical challenge of huge proportions, and the biggest thing that NASA's ever done, and to some degree, one of the largest television broadcasts that was ever produced. I was part of the broadcast itself. We had a central location in South Carolina, and we ended up broadcasting for 4 hours, which was a really long day. But we also brought together smaller events across the country. We had maps to share both the broadcast events, which are in blue, as well as official viewing sites. And then there's another map that's not shown here, which we allowed to share all of the different festivals and activities happening across the country, and actually not just in the United States. One of the key things that was important for this event was bringing it to diverse audiences and underserved audiences, in addition to expanding the language availability. We also wanted to make sure to reach underserved audiences. And one of the areas that we focused on was the blind and visually impaired. Now, there also was work for the deaf and other groups, but I'm focusing specifically here on the challenge of bringing the eclipse to the blind and visually impaired. And this was a unique opportunity. People that we worked with at currently, well, in the past at the Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, and now led by Trey Winter, who has his own company. We've been expanding this to include this in Spanish language now, which is we're working on actually for this eclipse and the upcoming eclipse and future eclipses. But this was translating the imagery into sound and to tactile, a tactile interface that people could access on smartphones and smart devices. And this was extremely successful and something that we're going to continue and expand to bring astronomy in general and what is primarily a visual area to the blind and visually impaired. And all of this, of course, culminated in a huge event, across the globe, because not only were people in the path of totality, but they were in locations everywhere to see the partial eclipse. And we had a large number of feeds, as well as telescope feeds, so that people could experience this around the world. And I think this is one of the wonders of the current infrastructure that we have with the World Wide Web, and making something like this truly available to everyone. In terms of just a pure looking at the interactions via social media and the web, this was the largest event that NASA had ever engaged in. This was watched by around 600 million across 22 countries. And the NASA webpage alone had almost 100 million unique visits. And just to give you some perspective, these are some of the larger events which NASA has participated in or worked on, including some of their missions like the New Horizons flyby to Pluto or Juno at Jupiter. And you can see that the eclipse was actually an order of magnitude larger. So to put this in a different scale, here's actually to scale. And so this has been an amazing opportunity. And we can only imagine that the 2024 eclipse is going to literally eclipse the 2017 event. One thing also to note, NASA has traditionally worked very hard to have an audience which covers, men and women, and it's always been heavily focused. It's always have a much larger male audience, and this is something that has been a challenge for NASA to address. And this is the pie chart here is showing the demographics distribution, at least from social media, between men and women. And we can see the men are slightly more, but it's a much more even audience, which is something NASA has been striving for. And this was a much more successful opportunity. And so, of course, we then lead on from 2017, and we've had lots of activity in the Americas. This has been very exciting. So last year we had the Total Solar Eclipse in July, which of course crossed Chile and Argentina, farther north than the one that's coming next week. Many of us, including myself, were able to enjoy that in one of those countries. Some people are even in the Pacific on ships. This is a look at data showing the shadow moving across the two countries, starting in Chile and ending at sunset just south of Buenos Aires. This was a really exciting opportunity. This was also another chance to share with the public how varied eclipses are. For example, the 2017 eclipse was largely high in the sky for most observers, whereas this eclipse was occurring close to sunset, low in the sky, and also meant that it was going through a lot of atmosphere. Here's the eclipse seen with the GoPro camera from Argentina. I'm one of those little people wiggling around over on the right. But this was really amazing because it was so low in the sky and going through so much atmosphere. Behind all of those people, the mountainside was lit up with shadow bands. And it was a pretty spectacular opportunity. So giving you an example of the varied nature of eclipses, that every eclipse is unique. Not only the environment and the atmosphere that you're observing it in, but also the corona itself, of course, is changing over the solar cycle. The eclipse that we're going to be experiencing next week, he'll have a much different corona than in 2017. Here is the eclipse that's occurring on Monday, the 14th. I'm very sorry that I won't be there. We have a site. Okay, thank you. We have a site with our eclipse flyer, which will be both in English and Spanish. And what's coming next? A couple more events. We have one in Antarctica, which is also touching the bottom of South America. There is one hybrid, for example, hybrid solar eclipse in April 2023. But we're looking forward to 2023 in October with an annular eclipse and a total solar eclipse, which are crossing each other in North America. And then we have the total solar eclipse of April 8th, 2024, which will be exciting because the path is wider and the average length of totality is much longer than 2017. So this will be an exciting opportunity starting in Mexico, moving up through the United States into Canada, ending over the North Atlantic. And there are more to come. So again, eclipses are an amazing opportunity to bring the wonders of the universe literally to your doorstep, something that you can see with minimal or no equipment at all. And in the path of totality, you can experience this and see this with your own eyes. So thank you very much. I hope that everyone gets a chance to at least see the next one remotely, and that everyone who hasn't had an opportunity to see a total solar eclipse can look forward to the many that are coming and hopefully experience maybe the one in 2024 or some of the ones coming after that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex, for this wonderful talk. It's great to see how much effort NASA invested in the 2017 eclipse. And I also want to thank you for expanding the Spanish content in the NASA website in the educational part. So that's wonderful.
Absolutely. And one of the things I will add, it was in the bottom of my talk, but this is something NASA's been working hard and has a huge team of educators and scientists who are native speakers to continue to expand our content. And then we're also reaching out to experts in other countries, like, your institutions and others, so that we can continue to make sure that we can reach as broad of audience as possible. And we hope these languages will continue to expand, obviously, beyond Spanish.
Yeah. I would like, if you permit me to say something, I remember last year when Alex joined us for the WEDEA, the workshop on education in astronomy in San Juan after the eclipse. The participants, we had a lot of primary school teachers participants at the meeting, and some of them asked Alex for more material in Spanish, And to me, it's also very, very grateful to see that the efforts are great to produce this kind of material. And well, it's a demonstration that this kind of meeting are useful for in many aspects, not only to share the colleagues and to talk about science and applications, something like that, or things like that, but also to receive the feedback from from different audiences. And this is important. This is this is to produce a better impact in the people.
Absolutely, and I was very excited to get that impact, that input. You know, one of my goals is that when we have our next large eclipse site, and then eventually include the 2024 and beyond, is that it is both, you know, as a dual language site. You know, and I look forward to in the future it being more than a dual language site. But my goal is to see it to be an English and Spanish site, to at least that, and make sure that all of our activities are such. I will say that next week we're having a broadcast that we have coordinated with some partners in Chile, and we will have experts from NASA who will be providing a Spanish broadcast. So from some of my colleagues in the heliophysics division, from one from Spain and one from Puerto Rico. So this is something that's very exciting, and of course also continuing to expand accessibility and availability to groups like the blind and visually impaired is really important for us.
Wonderful. Thanks. There are a couple of questions for a moment. So Kentaro Yaji says, thank you for your nice talk. We could share experience about solar total eclipse from remote places via internet and TV media. By the way, what did amateur astronomers or public groups contribute to this solar eclipse outreach activity?
Well, that's a great question. We actually had a lot of input from from amateur astronomers. We had several activities, including the Citizen Cape project, which were 60 plus telescopes across the path of totality that were staffed by amateurs who learned how to use them to provide observations of the total eclipse for almost an hour and a half from one end of the country to the other. We also had several amateur and public groups that flew more than 50 high altitude balloons. So those were two of the main citizen science and public activities. And then we want to continue to expand that for future events. And I'm also always would love to hear more about other people's experiences, and even some anecdotal experiences, you know, of people seeing eclipses for the first time, which is a wonderful information. So I'm always happy to learn from everyone else of what your experiences were.
Thank you. So there's another question by OCA Zoom 2. I don't know who that is. He says, or she, hi Alex, the illustrations on your presentation were great. Can you share the source, or better yet, your PowerPoint?
Absolutely. Well, I will share the PowerPoint, but I'll also say that all of those animations, maps, and everything are provided by NASA. They are free for everyone. And we have a site called the Scientific Visualization Studio, SVS. You can just Google SVS NASA, and that probably will be the first thing that comes up. And there's a huge site that contains more than 10,000 NASA visualizations and presentations, and not just the eclipse, but all of Earth and space science. And if anybody has any particular questions, you can email me at the email that's at the back of the presentation.
Perfect. So I don't see any more questions over here, but I have a couple of questions myself. So okay. I was wondering, first, if you have any measure of how many people actually grabbed the glasses and looked at the sky on that day?
We do. I have to look at, I don't remember the exact numbers, but we do have actually a national survey that we did to try to estimate how many people both saw the eclipse in path of totality as well as just partial. And the estimates range around 20 plus million that observe the eclipse in the path of totality, and then more on the order of 200 million that saw some part of the eclipse in partial phase. And that's just in the United States. That does not include, of course, Canada, Mexico, South America, huge, the range of just the partial phase was pretty large.
Yeah, I have chicken skin. Numbers. It's a huge amount of people. And do you know how many people actually went on the road? So because there was a big fear that streets, roads were going to collapse and etc. So
I don't know the exact estimates. I know that there are a couple of different, and it was something to the order almost comparable to the number of people that, or comparable to the number of people that actually saw totality, but we're talking probably about several million people were driving. And this was a huge concern. And we actually worked with state and local organizations as well as the Department of Transportation to plan for this. It turned out that going to the eclipse was not the problem. Leaving the eclipse was the problem. And that was something that we have to think about for 2023 and 2024, especially. There were traffic jams for people leaving the eclipse that lasted for hours. I knew people that only took maybe an hour drive to get to the eclipse, but it took them 12 plus hours to get home. So it was definitely something that we need to plan for better.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Okay, so, and does NASA have a planned means of reaching schools through teachers?
Yes, that is definitely, when we think about our lessons learned for 2017, this was one of our biggest missteps. We did have lots of outreach to teachers to provide professional development, resources, and this sort of thing. But we will be focusing much stronger on addressing educators and students. One of the issues that was a huge problem for the 2017 eclipse was that it was at the beginning of school for many school systems. And so that was one of the problems. But we also didn't do a good enough job reaching out to the administrators of the schools. And so a lot of schools didn't let their students go outside because we didn't really reach out enough to the administrators to share with them what was safe and what was not. And they were so afraid that that was one of the most disappointing things about it, is the number of students who were actually held inside and not allowed to go out and see it. And I personally, that's one of the most important things for me to not happen during the next eclipse.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. So, are there any more questions for Alex?
No, I think there are no more questions, but I would like to give my thanks, especially thanks, because I know everybody is very, very busy these days, and this is the last talk of the day. In fact, it's the end of the first day of the workshop, but it's not the last activity, because we have another activity in the afternoon at 6 p.m. UTC, which is the Galaxy Forum. And well, I would like to invite you to reconnect at that time to see more contributions about different topics, mainly connected with the sky and with astronautics also. So thank you, Alex. Thank you, Eve. You were a brilliant end for a day. And with the sun behind Alex, is a brilliant end for the day. So thank you very much, everyone. And
Thank you both.
No, thank you, Alex. It was a beautiful talk. We are a bit sad because I received some questions at the chat about where we will see the eclipse this year. And most of us will see the eclipse at home because, and not total, partial. So,
Yeah.
well, is life, is this year is a special year, I think. And well, we have a lot of very interested people along the totality path. So we are also happy because when the astronomers go, the people relaxed. So the astronomers will do everything, and now the people there must do everything. So it's a completely different panorama, and we are very happy also because a lot of teachers, professors, associations, community, even politicians are involved in the observation, transmission, the distribution of the glasses. Well, was a great action in both, not only in the provinces where the eclipse will be total, Neuquén and Rio Negro, but also in different parts of Argentina with a partial eclipse. So it's a good year, a year where we connect in a different way with the people through the technology, through the platforms, the internet, and well, for this we can make this symposium because we were trained all the year to do that. So
Wonderful.
thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, all the people. And see you this afternoon for the Galaxy Forum. Please check the program. And tomorrow at 8 UTC, we open the room to test things. Well, we can test, and after nothing works, but anyway, we will open the room, but the meeting starts at 8 tomorrow. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. If you
Bye.
want to open, no, you cannot open the cameras. Tomorrow, remember, tomorrow or after tomorrow, we will take the photo of the group. So try to be here. Nobody knows when we will take the groupal image for this Congress. Thank you very much. See you later. See you.